In January of 2018, I made possibly one of the most important phone calls of my life. That wasn't the intention. I was simply calling my 87-year-old mother for my weekly check-in to see how she was. "Hello, Mum. How are you?" A simple enough start to any conversation with one's mother. "Struggling on" would often be the response, or "I'm all right, darling." Then she asked me a question. "What have you learned this week?" My mother had never asked this question before, so I told her the truth. "Well, I've confirmed once again, Mum, that I'm a compulsive, impulsive, opportunistic, verbose, unrealistic, not particularly level-headed chap, often make very poor choices and decisions, and the list goes on." Her response was one I have never forgotten, nor will I ever forget. "Ah, my son, all of the wonderful qualities that have gotten me through life." The rest of the conversation I couldn't tell you what it was about. It simply struck me then, and still confirms to me now, that being human was never about being right all the time, clever all the time, making the very best decisions all the time, being kind all the time, empathic and compassionate all the time, never worrying, never having anxiety, never getting angry, never telling a lie, and living a life so virtuous that you actually become less human. In my mother's words, I found a kind of redemption, an acknowledgement of the gift of humanity and the encouragement to continue to be human. She also was telling me something more profound. "You've got me in you. Don't be ashamed of me. I made it through life, son." My mother never boasted of her virtues, and perhaps she felt she had none. But this leads to another story. 25 years ago, before I was married, I was in the passenger seat of my then-girlfriend's car. We were approaching a roundabout, and as we drove closer, a woman had broken down 2 cars in front of us. Without any hesitation, I jumped out of the car and started to push the woman's car off the road, and then, when I got out, there were a bunch of other men, far hunkier than me, who got out of their vehicles and started to push also. That girlfriend became my wife. 15 years later, she turned to me and said these words: "The day you got out of the car and pushed that lady's vehicle without a thought or pause was the day I decided to marry you. My compulsion and impulsivity that I looked upon as error or weakness were the very things that brought me to the altar and in the end a better version of myself, for I was so much better with her. Perhaps it is time we stop pointing the finger of blame at others and stop pointing it at ourselves and start to recognize the nuance and complexity that contributes towards your humanity. That which you think is vice could be your saving grace and your greatest virtue." See you again.